How would you describe Rio de Janeiro as a city?
I would describe Rio de Janeiro as one of the most beautiful cities in the world. It's diverse, it's huge. There's a lot you can do and see here in Rio. We love it. It's called the Cidade Maravilhosa, the marvelous city, because it is. Everywhere you look, there's something new. There's something new to experience, taste, see. It's a beautiful city.
I think Rio is one of the most unique cities that I've seen in Brazil because of the nature. I feel like it's one of the only places where you can have not only a beautiful white beach, but you also have huge mountains and boulders with jungle on top of that. You have all of this nature just coming all into one. And so for me, it's all the senses where, you're surfing and then you can see the jungle or just walk up it, and it's just incredible. I also love, as with any city in Brazil, I love the music, the food, and the flavors. I love all the different things you can do here, including Carnival in Rio as well, which I did get to experience in 2019, the last one they had before the shutdowns, and that was incredible.
How would you describe the culture of Brazil, and particularly the culture of the cariocas?
The culture of Brazil is interesting because there are so many different regions in this country that it feels like if you go just to a different state, it feels like you're in a different country. It's just that they speak the same language with a different accent. We lived in Salvador for 2 years and we loved it. It was a very laid-back lifestyle. You could sit down with anybody and you'd know their whole life story in a very short period of time. They're very open and very willing to talk with you. And it's a kind of a more relaxed, slower type of lifestyle. It's beautiful. We felt like it was paradise living in Bahia. Then we came here to Rio de Janeiro. And Rio de Janeiro is a vibrant, energetic city. There's so much going on. It's so busy. And yet at the same time, there's time to relax. The beaches are place where you can go to relax and hang out with friends. So I would say that the lifestyle and the culture is completely different here in Rio compared to Salvador, compared to São Paulo, compared to Manaus or Amazonas. It's, I would say, a diverse country with lots of different people, lots of different cultures, foods, tastes, sights, sounds. It's a beautiful thing.
For me, Salvador is just completely different than anywhere else I've been to in Brazil because of the culture. It's the blackest city outside of Africa. So I've read that it's 83% black, and that's because it was the first port in South America and in Brazil. And so that's where all the millions of slaves came in. And so it's still very, very black. But what's amazing is that it's this incredible Afro-Brazilian culture that has really just grown and cultivated from the beginning. And so you have this unique music and drumming and African food and everything has its Brazilian flair on it. And so it's unique to Brazil. It's not just African and it's not just Brazilian. It's this amazing mix. And even in the cities like Pelourinho, where you can really they have like regular drumming and like groups like Olodum. So the feeling is different, but then all the sounds and the flavors are very unique as well. And then you come to Rio, and you notice that the skin color gets a lot lighter. The accent changes. The food does change. It's still beans and rice and meat, but you go from like brown beans to black beans and, just kind of a few things that people claim is totally different. And it is maybe just as delicious. And I think the mentality is different. I think the effort to earn more money and kind of maybe have a little more prestige is here more. Maybe I just feel it more in Baja da Tijuca, where we live.
There's a hustle mentality here in Rio de Janeiro. Mm-hmm. Like you gotta work hard and you gotta hustle so that you can go to the beach and relax.
Yeah, that's true. So that you can ultimately vacation. right. And I like that. It's different from American culture. That's one thing that's grown on me and one thing that I really like.
In the United States, there's no question about it that there's a strong history of racism, right? And there is, 13% of the American population is Black. So the influence is kind of, I guess, proportional to that. But when you're in a city like Salvador and it's 83% Black, how did that African history kind of shape the culture there, and maybe how does it shape it? Because I could see it in samba personally, right? I could see it in dance, but how did you see that shaping the culture a bit?
For me, it was one of the reasons why we chose to live there was because of the rich culture. I'm from Reno, Nevada, born and raised, and it's predominantly white. So I was one of the few Black kids in my school and at church and mostly through life. And I wouldn't say, I'm not a person that dwells on race. I wouldn't say I had a ton of experiences. Well, let me backtrack. I don't focus on race per se, but what I have realized as an adult was some of the opportunities to learn my roots and be around Black people and be around culture were lost as a child. And that's something I was looking for my kids. And so when I saw Salvador, I thought, okay, all these people look like me. They look like, some mixture of Black, which I thought was beautiful. And for me, that was really comforting because then we had the same hair and the same skin, and there was that commonality. And coming from Reno, that was a stark difference. And it was something I really wanted my children to not just like be around and go visit, but really spend enough time there to start to love and appreciate people of color and to have good friendships with people with, coming from a different culture. So not only just Brazilian, but also the different skin color was what was important to me. And like I was saying before, there is a strong African influence when you're specifically talking about slaves coming to Brazil. And I mean, there were a lot of events and people and experiences where I was like, wow, I really get to experience something very unique to us and also to Brazil, because I feel like it's sort of a pocket, Salvador, because I haven't seen that culture really anywhere else. I mean, you see it because, like, for instance, capoeira is that martial arts dance that evolved from slavery, and they have it here in Rio, but it was so strong. I mean, you would always see the circles, you would always see the guys in the outfits, and always hear people singing the music just on the street. And I haven't seen that here. And so it's really focused and concentrated there. And we took part in all of it. We participated in the circles and took classes. And any time we could, from acarajé on the street to, intense African restaurants and then shows and people and places we were always trying to discover and like really experience. So I just think it's beautiful.
And how do you see the different cultures mixing? Because when I come to Rio, I look at the people and I see European descent, African descent, indigenous, and then I see everything in between, right? And as I look at the architecture and listen to the language and look at the food, I see that all coming together on the plates, in the buildings, in the construction. How do you see that dance of cultures, really? You have European, African, and indigenous coming together. Is that something that was apparent to you as well, or not really?
And not at first, no. It's when you arrive in a place and you just take the time to get to know the people and eat the food and socialize and get out. And then you start to see common patterns. And for us, that's been slow because we moved here right before the pandemic. So there hasn't been as many opportunities to get out as we would have had we been 2 years free of the pandemic. I'm trying to think of a specific example where we really see all the cultures coming together. For instance, in Petropolis, up in the mountains of Rio de Janeiro, there are some pockets of European settlements. And there's like a little Finland and a little Swiss. And then there's Petropolis, which is where the royalty from the royal family from Portugal they had their like summer homes there because it's a lot cooler in the mountains. It's amazing up there.
And you also see a lot of German influence. On the way up there, you see the
German restaurants
Casa de Alemão, which is the house of the German house. Yeah. And you always stop there to get some bread or some breakfast or something to eat on the way up there. And it's nice to see that. And so that culture is maintained. Yet at the same time, they're integrated in, and it's expected that there's good food at the Casa de Alemão. So it's kind of nice to see that. All the cultures, everybody wants to maintain their culture and show individuality from where they come from. Everybody's interested in where you've come from and where your parents have come from. When did you come here? That's always one of the first questions. Where are you from? Everybody's interested. And everybody wants to know your roots.
Yeah, I've been to Itapava, and that's in Petropolis.
Yeah, it's right nearby, yeah.
Yeah, and it was that way too. It was cold. It was like a kind of rainy day, but there's like a little bit of a wine country there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. And that's the thing. It's like we're about an hour and a half away from here. So you could go from this tropical beach paradise to mountain vineyards in an hour and a half, and it's all in the same pocket.
Yeah. And that's incredible, really, when you think about it. There's not any places that I could think of that I know of in the States that have pockets like that.
That are that diverse and that quick? No.
A little, yeah. I guess there's Chinatown in
some of the big cities?
In like the Bay
San
Area.
Francisco and,
but like
New York.
I feel like it's different than the European style.
No, it's different because you'll go from it looking like Portuguese influence to Germantown construction. The
windmills and the flowers and the total architecture. We visited Alhambra. It's in São Paulo. Alhambra is Holland,
America, and Brazil.
Yeah.
Together.
Yeah. So it's this total Dutch settlement, and they over the years have given tax incentives to people who build in Dutch architecture, and they have it's super Dutch, and it's really impressive. And then you got the history about how they started, and Brazil has made some good partnerships with countries from the beginning, and people came here for different reasons, but they were adamant about maintaining the culture. And the good thing about Brazil is that they have preserved that. I think that's the amazing part.
So what was it for you guys that made you want to call Brazil home?
The thing that made us really want to come here to Brazil was our knowledge base that we already had. I lived here about 20 years ago in the north of Brazil, in Belém do Pará, Maranhão, and the state of Amapá. And I lived there for 2 years as a missionary for my church, the Church of Jesus Christ. And while there, I learned to love the language, the people, the food, the culture, everything about Brazil. I loved it. And since that time, I've always wanted to come back to Brazil. And I've carried that love for Brazil with me. And I shared it with Chanika. And so soon after we got married, we came down here to Brazil. We visited Rio de Janeiro, and Chanika fell in love with it as well. Immediately, she fell in love with Brazil. And so we always wanted to do something here in Brazil, always. And so we visited a couple of times. We came during the Olympics.
2016.
In 2016. And then after that, we had an opportunity. We said, "Hey, let's do this. Let's move to Brazil and make it our home, and we can give the kids an international experience, broaden their horizons when it comes to culture, language." So we had an opportunity to open up a trampoline park, and so we sold everything that we had in the United States, and we moved to Brazil. We moved to Salvador. We opened up a big, huge map on a table, and we looked at all the different cities that we could move to. And we also interviewed a lot of Brazilians. And we asked, hey, if you could live anywhere in Brazil, where would you live? And a few people said Salvador. And so we looked into the history of Salvador and the population demographics for a business. And we decided, okay, let's go to Salvador. We didn't know, we'd never been to Salvador, and so we just moved there on a leap of faith. We moved to Salvador.
Yeah. One of the reasons why we came to Brazil was because of Chris's previous experience having lived on the Amazon. And he had the most incredible stories. So I met him after he got back, and he was telling me all kinds of stuff about Brazil, and I thought it sounded amazing. And so we were able to travel here. Our first trip was to Rio and to where he used to live on the Amazon. And again, being from Reno, Nevada, predominantly white city, seeing so much brown and so many people who looked like me, it was comforting. I was like, wow. And then it was, the people, the food, the culture, the music. And I instantly fell in love with Brazil. And I truly thought it was a tropical paradise. And for us, when we got the opportunity to come here, there were a lot of questions, and it does take a lot of research and homework to decide if you're going to sell everything and move your entire family, 5 children, overseas to a developing country. And for me, I actually was ready for an adventure. And when the opportunity came, I was like, let's do it. I mean, worst thing.
She quote. When I asked her, hey, what do you think about this opportunity in Brazil? She said, my bags are packed.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's do it. Absolutely. And I've never regretted it since. Because in the end, when you come and we had to sell our house to invest in our business. And in the end, I'm like, if that's all we lose, then it's still a great opportunity to break out of a mold, follow our dreams of starting a business, and then live in a tropical paradise and expose our kids to a new culture and a new language. And to me, that was a no-brainer. For Chris, he's definitely not a risk taker, and it's a good thing because we need someone responsible in the family. But I mean, he definitely was like, okay, we need to look at the numbers, we need to look at all these facts and figures, and that was, we spent time doing that homework. But in the end, it was definitely a gut feeling, and I was like, that would be so amazing. And we've been in Brazil 4 years now, and I've never regretted it, and I wouldn't change a thing. Our children are bilingual. We do have a successful business, which is nice so that we continue to stay here and live. But for me, it's been more about the lifestyle, the very high quality of lifestyle we have here, and the opportunities that we have with more time to spend with our children, but then also to continue to just enjoy this country and really travel and spend time and get to know different areas of Brazil, which has been wonderful, and it's provided a lot of opportunities for growth for us.
Now, Chris, what was your reservation, since you're the more risk adverse of the two? What was your initial reservation?
Leaving the security of a corporate job, of a 401k plan, of all these golden handcuffs in the United States. And it was a job that I was done with. I was done with the job. And so we were looking for something, for an alternative to the position that I had. And so my reservation was the financial security that I thought we had in the United States. We were living a middle-class lifestyle, and we were struggling. We had 5 kids at home. And so really my concern was the financial aspect. We were selling everything, cutting off my income.
I was a stay-at-home mom, so he was the sole income earner.
And so that was absolutely my number one concern, was economics. How are we going to do our family economics? And so starting a business was the best way for us to go. So it was family economics. The ability for us to survive financially was my number one concern. And I didn't know for sure if this business was going to do well. I didn't know if it was going to be successful. So it was, So we didn't have a choice. We had to make sure that this business was successful because failure was not an option. So we made sure that it was successful.
We had some friends that did it before us. An American family from Washington State. They also had 5 kids, actually, and they moved to São Paulo. They chose the biggest city in Brazil to open up trampoline parks. They ended up opening 3 and happened to be back in the States visiting. We met them and they were telling us all about their adventures and their business. And they were really transparent with us and showed us their real business numbers. So we had a very good sense that we were bringing something totally unique to Brazil, because trampoline parks are very common in the United States, but not here. There are some barriers to entry that make it difficult, primarily shipping. But we knew the business could be great. We knew that there wasn't competition, and that the entertainment industry as a whole in Brazil was lacking, and that we could fill a cool need with a fun, safe, clean, indoor, family fun business. So we did know the business would be successful. But then there's all the other pieces to uprooting and starting completely over and living off of savings while you're also starting a business and finding a location and getting it off the ground. There were a lot of unknowns with that too. And we were just gung-ho. We were serious. We were focused. We were not messing around because we had pretty much invested everything into it. So there was no plan B. But we knew, at least I knew, and I think Chris knew too, that if we could just get the doors open, we would be fine. And it took longer than expected with lots more complications. But again, we were persistent, we were focused. And that's what I think is the main
Persistence.
Yeah, the main key, the main takeaway for business in Brazil is that it's not easy. But if you're persistent, you can succeed. And it takes a lot of patience and effort and persistence to keep following up, to keep finding another way, to keep finding someone else who can help you, or to just wait through the processes that you need to get the documentation. It's very different from the United States. And we knew that, but it's a different game once you get out here and you're in the middle of it and you're like, oh no, it's taking so much longer and we only have a certain amount we can live on and this and that. And it came down to the wire for sure for us. But we drove forward with faith, and it's paid off.
My financial anxiety started to subside on the first day that we opened our doors, because hundreds of people came to the trampoline park, and we were slammed. We were jam-packed, and so my financial concerns and anxieties that I had.
It was beautiful, actually. It was so beautiful. And then we were always in the green after that. It was always a good, unique business. And that's so fun. We love the business.
And did you open pre-pandemic or?
In Salvador, we opened up in 2018. 2018.
No, it was open 2 years before we moved. Or was it 1? I don't remember.
In Salvador, we opened up in 2018, and it was doing very well. So that was pre-pandemic for sure. And then we were comfortable. We felt like we were easy street. And so we like to go out of our comfort zone. And so we decided to open up another one and move to Rio de Janeiro and open up here in Rio. And we moved to Rio, and then the pandemic hit.
2 months later, we moved in February, March, everything was shut down.
So that was another time of anxiety and stress. And is this did we make the right decision? But we had prayed about it, and we felt good about it. And so we continued to move forward with that decision here in Rio. And we opened up during the pandemic, and we found out that people were starving for entertainment, and they couldn't find it anywhere. And so a trampoline park was a perfect place to go to blow off that energy, let their kids bounce around and have fun. So it was good. It was actually the best thing that we could have done, was to move to Rio and open up a second trampoline park, because the one in Salvador had been shut down because of all the governmental restrictions in that part of the country.
Before moving here, you were working, a typical job. You're making your way through life, doing what everybody thinks you're supposed to do in the United States, living the dream, so to speak. What made you decide to kind of step away from your career and take this leap of faith?
What made me step away from my career and take this leap of faith was I was not satisfied with the career that I had chosen. I was working a corporate position in supply chain management. I was working in procurement, and so I was negotiating contracts and managing all these contracts. And after a while, I didn't feel like that was a satisfying thing for me to do. I was working a lot of hours, more than the 40-hour work week. I didn't get to see my family that much. My wife was at home with 5 kids. Our marriage was struggling. It wasn't the dream that I had imagined. It wasn't everything that we wanted or needed. We needed a lot more, and we just didn't know where to go for it. So I was looking. We were looking for an alternative.
My husband had this job that we both thought once, we graduate college and you get this great job that you're going to make this amount of money. And we bought our first home and we started having children and we were living the American dream. But it's not really a good dream. It ends up being very stressful. He was working close to 80 hours a week, coming home very stressed, very exhausted, not being able to spend time with me and the kids. I was at home completely exhausted with 5 babies, and we needed a change. And he had actually been looking for other jobs, but nothing was quite panning out. And that was a mystery to us as well, because he's got a great resume, a lot of education and experience, and we weren't, things just weren't clicking. And again, our marriage was strained and stressed, and it was time for a change. And so when this opportunity came up, I feel like it was one of those things where Chris was just so ready to do anything different that he was willing to take the risk, because otherwise was not a risk taker. And he would never be like, let's sell everything and move to a foreign country and start some random business.
What did your friends think about that decision to leave the country and start a random business in Brazil?
Our friends were split down the middle when it came to letting everybody know about our decision. So we told Shanika's mother that I said, hey, we're going to move to Brazil. And she grabbed me by the collar and she said, if you're not back within 3 years, I'm going to come down there and I'm going to kill you.
And this was after the point when she actually started talking to us again. Because originally she cried, she refused to speak to me, which is extreme because my mom and I are best friends. She was so upset that we were taking her grandbabies away and so far and to a dangerous, dirty country. My mom is the type that's in her comfort zone and she doesn't really leave her house that much, and she certainly does not travel. She has come to Brazil now, but she was completely against it then and thought it was insane and ridiculous. She was upset with us.
But now that she's come to Brazil and she's visited us here, she did not come here to kill me. She came here to visit her grandchildren, and she sees that it's not a bad thing. She actually sees that this is a beautiful thing. She does miss her grandkids, but we go back and visit, and she comes here to visit, and so it's not a bad thing.
We had a lot of friends that were like, wait, what? Why? What? Like, they just didn't get it. They're like, that doesn't make any sense. Or like, why would you leave the United States?
Why
or
would
like,
you leave paradise?
Yeah. They really, most of them were like baffled.
They said,
and they were fearful for us.
They said it's unnecessary. And maybe so. Maybe it is unnecessary, but it was at that moment in our lives, it was a necessary thing for us to make a big change. Because the small little changes that I was making and that we were making.
It wasn't working. It wasn't working for us. It wasn't working out.
We had to make a big change, and it changed our lives in a huge way.
Massive.
Positively. And we love that we made that big leap of faith. And that's why we call our trampoline park Big Jump, because literally we made a big jump in our lives. Huge.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest decision that we've made together was to sell everything and move to a foreign country.
How does that change you as a person and change the perspective of your children? For me, my wife is Venezuelan. and my parents are from Haiti, right? So I was born and raised in the United States, grew up there. I'm American, right? My parents are Haitian, but I'm totally American. I eat Haitian food and speak the language, and that's about it. My wife, being from Venezuela, she came as an adult, and she was like, I don't know how you guys work like this. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. This is not living. And I was like, that's kind of interesting because I don't know, I started to feel like spent by what I'm doing, right? And I don't know, have you guys seen Fight Club, the movie?
No.
Oh man, there's a scene in Fight Club where the I guess the protagonist is talking to Brad Pitt, the other protagonist, I guess, antagonist in a way, and they're kind of relating about how they followed that American dream, right? Go to college, and then what do you do next? Get a job. All right, you got a job. What should you do now? Get married, then have kids. And next thing you know, you're 40 years old, living in your condominium, collecting things, and none of it fulfills you. Uh-huh. How has kind of breaking from that tradition of the American dream almost, it sounds like you guys have been inspired in a way to kind of see life differently. How has taking that leap of faith or that jump shaped you as people?
Taking that leap of faith has completely changed us. And it started back when we made the decision to go. And we had to start to explain to people that we were gonna detach. And they didn't get that. And at the time, we didn't comprehend fully what that was gonna mean either. We knew it was gonna be a lot of big changes. But it started when we put our house on the market and we started selling our things. We had purchased this house. We had it for a year and a half, and it was finally that big house with all the extra bedrooms for the kids. And I had all my entertaining stuff and all my decorations. And we had this really big garage sale where we sold all of it. And what we didn't sell, we donated because we didn't take any of that with us. We moved to Brazil with a suitcase apiece, so 7 suitcases, and that was it. We literally sold everything. And that started a deep cleansing process of just letting go of things that I thought were so important and so beautiful and I wanted to have in my home because it represented who I was, but that wasn't the truth at all. And as I detached and was getting rid of that stuff, I started just getting rid of everything. And that included old beliefs and ways that we have to be as Americans and in our culture and how you raise a family and what a mom is supposed to do and how we're supposed to live. And all of those things really, I just started cleansing myself. So then when we moved to Brazil, we literally started over. I literally did not know how to turn on my stove, what meat to buy, how to cook it for our children. I was learning from scratch. I couldn't read directions on how to even make something basic and put it in the microwave. And so there were moments where I would break down and cry because I'm I'm not getting that. I can't even do the basics. But then slowly but surely, as I'm learning the language and starting to embrace our new life, and we were making, having progress and step backs as far as opening the business, I started to celebrate those small wins. And then there was this beautiful moment where I realized that, I don't have control over anything. And here in Brazil, now we get to go to the beach and be in one of the most beautiful places. And so I was able to blow off steam in a unique way because we lived in the mountains, in the desert in Nevada. And so being able to go and be at the ocean and truly relax to the sound of the waves was also just life-changing. It was those little things that were beautiful. And so when I would, there were women at church that started to teach me how to cook. And when my first batch of feijoada, I burnt it completely. But the second time it was awesome. And we were all cheering because we had food and that I was able to prepare myself. And so I learned that it's not about all this money and all these big things. It's those small successes in life and how you're continually learning and growing. And starting over in Brazil provided a whole new opportunity to do that. And sometimes it is hard and it's stressful because I've got 5 mouths to feed. I don't have the time or the resources to be getting lost and figuring it out and being afraid in some areas in Salvador that really weren't very safe, and I didn't know my way around, and I ended up getting lost. And with my kids, there were some scary situations, but at the end of the day, you make it home safe and you learn and you grow. And I'm always trying to teach my kids that that's what it's about, is our mindset, our mentality, is that we need to focus on the small accomplishments and the things we are doing. And they do accumulate to a big achievement. And we got our business open, and we're a bilingual family now, and we get to experience all the beautiful things of Brazil because of our persistence.
Another thing that I learned is that I don't ever want to work for anybody else again. I don't want to have to live and abide by somebody else's rules and get paid by one person or one corporation. We've learned through this experience that it's better to be our own bosses, our own. We're self-employed, and we have thousands of people coming to us every month to give us money to jump in our trampoline parks, and that is
Freedom.
huge. That is freedom. We love it. We love the aspect of going to our trampoline park whenever we want, and our kids never get tired of it. After 4 years, they never get tired of it. And so we will never work for anybody else again.
Never. It's been beautiful having our own business, and it has provided so much free time and so much freedom to do whatever we want. We can travel off season and during the week. We can take time off. We don't have to ask anybody to do what we want to do. And that's been so incredible. And so where we're coming from, Chris is working 80 hours a week, to Chris, we still work, but we work quite a bit from home, at the beach, anywhere. And then on our own schedule. I actually do a lot of work after the kids go to bed, so I can spend my days going to the beach and hanging out with the kids and traveling and just being on my own schedule. And that provides so much more quality family time and focus and good energy, rest. And that's been incredible for our relationship and for our family.
How have the kids adjusted to the change?
Our kids adjusted very well. Our kids are very, they adapted. The question here in Brazil is, how have your kids adapted to a new lifestyle and a new culture, a new language? Kids are very malleable, and they adapt very quickly. All the kids learn Portuguese very quickly. In Salvador, we put our kids into a private Brazilian school where they only spoke Portuguese. They didn't speak Portuguese at the time, but they learned very quickly. I feel like in a short period of time, like maybe 6 months, they learned Portuguese.
Less than that. I would say it was 4 months.
Maybe 4 months, they learned Portuguese, and they had Brazilian friends, and they were speaking the language, in our opinions, very fluently.
Yeah.
Some of our kids, people ask us where they were born in Brazil. We say, no, they were all born in the United States, and they don't believe us because our kids are so well adapted. A lot of people thought that we were doing something bad for our kids when we told them that we were moving to Brazil. They said, oh, it's very dangerous there. How can you do that to such young kids?
Brazilians have told us we are bad parents because we moved our kids to Brazil. They're like, the education is terrible, the crime. This is from Brazilians. And we're like,
They got that good
whoa.
illusion of America.
Yeah. And this is providing such a unique education that they would never have in the States. But and more so, Brazilians are the ones that tell us, you're crazy. Why would you bring your kids here? And we're like, why wouldn't we? In fact, we were the only Americans in Salvador that didn't have our kids in the American school. And we're like, guys, we didn't come here for that. We came to immerse our kids in Brazilian culture and to participate in Brazil and not live in this bubble with just foreigners and just Americans and just English. Like, we really came for the experience. And it's paid off. They learned quick, and we've really been able to immerse ourselves in it.
And to add on that, I think Hollywood has sold the American dream very well to the entire world. Brazilians think that we made the biggest mistake of our lives by moving out of the United States to Brazil. Yet we feel like we have opened up the world to our children. They have two perspectives now. They have the American perspective, and they also have a foreign perspective, which is from Brazil. And they can see and choose which parts that they want to live and which parts they want to follow. They have a different perspective, a unique perspective that very few people in the world have. Very few Americans, for sure, have this unique perspective.
Our children were fairly young when we moved here. The girls were 4, 5, and 6, and the boys were 8 and 9. So they're all close in age. So they were between 4 and 9 when we moved here. And they were young enough to put them in school and make friends and really grasp the language. And there were some hard times that we were going through, stressing over business stuff and getting things just situated. But in the end, I was always really positive, and I've always really embraced the culture and have tried to teach my children that, like, we have this rule in our family where you have to try a bite. You have to try something once and give it a good try. You don't just get to be like, I don't like that. And there were some colorful, interesting foods in Salvador that looked a little crazy, but I'm like, this is what we're here to do. This is our family rule. We have to really try a little bit of everything. And as we've done that, they really just have embraced it, embraced the culture and embraced the language. And I hope, children are children, and maybe they're not always like expressing all this gratitude, but I know that it's really teaching them a lot about loving everyone and being open to different cultures and different people. And then also, they're surfing before school. They have these opportunities to do amazing things that a lot of people don't get to do in their lifetime. And I think later they'll appreciate it a lot more. They're having fun now, but I think it'll really dawn on them when they realize, like, all the different things they got to do as kids.
When people are coming to Rio de Janeiro for the first time, what are some of the must-sees?
Everybody wants to see Christ the Redeemer because it's a national icon. It's beautiful. I recommend hiking up there, not just driving up there. Take the hike. It's incredible. Pão de Açúcar, or Sugarloaf Mountain, is another good one. It's a great view. The mountains up there are beautiful. And I think it's probably one of the best views in Rio because you can get a full 360 view of the whole city. And then sunset's the best time to go over the ocean and then the city. It's beautiful. I think that's my favorite. There's Copacabana and Ipanema. Those are the famous beaches. I actually like some of the other beaches, especially out here in Baja, but those are the famous ones. So people want to see those.
I think some of the places that people should go, some of the less known places, are like the Portuguese Royal Reading Room. Mm-hmm. It takes maybe 10 minutes to go see it. It's free. You can walk in and see it.
It's inspiring.
It's inspiring. It's impressive. There's a lot of history there. Another place is Parque Lage. That's impressive. It's just at the base of Corcovado Mountain. And there's, it used to be a plantation. And there's the old plantation house there that's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Snoop Dogg filmed a video right inside of the plantation house. There's also Escada Celarón.
Oh yeah, the famous stairs.
The famous stairs, which are in Santa Teresa.
Yeah.
There's
Jardim Botânico.
Yeah, the Jardim Botânico is beautiful. The imperial palm trees.
Speaking of Santa Teresa, let's kind of go there for a bit because I'm going to be filming there. One of the things that, and we'll figure out how to make sense of this, but when I'm here, I see a lot of like these 100-year-old, 200-year-old Portuguese structures, beautifully developed, in ruin, right? And Santa Teresa is one of those places where there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
So being from New York City originally, like this would be like prime real estate.
Yeah.
But
what's going
for them,
on?
it's they I don't know what it is, but it goes to ruin. And it doesn't seem like it would take much to restore some of that stuff. And I think you could get it for pennies on the dollar what it's worth.
How would you describe Santa Teresa?
Santa Teresa is a historical neighborhood in Rio. Some places are run down. Other places are very touristic and people want to go see. I think more attention needs to be placed on Santa Teresa to restore some of the area to make it more inviting. You see some of the places that are run down and you maybe think, oh, this is not a safe place, but I feel like it's It's a nice place to go. Maybe nobody hears about Santa Teresa, but they've heard about Escada Celeron. They've heard about Lapa. The samba schools, some are in Santa Teresa.
The Lapas Arches are a popular night spot. I hear a lot of people want to go party down there, hang out there. I guess there's always music, and so it's a popular night spot as well.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, because that's gonna maybe help me kind of build the transition to, because I'm gonna go to Lapa. I'm gonna do actually a night crawl in Lapa. And then I actually have somebody that I'm going to interview to talk about like the history of samba and funky and the music and that sort of thing. So that's why I'm asking some of these questions that kind of seem
Cool.
Arcos de Lapa, they just did a reforma.
Reform.
I think they just painted them. So they look really nice right now. They were a little bit run down, but I think the Secretary of Tourism, he had a part in with another government organization to kind of make it look nice and make it to restore it a little bit. So right now it's in top condition. It should be in top condition.
You see a lot of the same thing in Salvador, though, with all of the amazing Portuguese architecture, with chipped tiles and just not taken care of. And we've not, it's something that the city government needs to be organized enough and have the funds to restore these buildings. They are so beautiful and so amazing. And right in very popular areas like Mercado Modelo in Salvador, along the edge of this, so it's right on the beach, they have this market, which used to be a slave trading market, and they used to have the posts where they used to whip the black people. They took the slaves, they took that out. But so now it's this famous market, but right in front of that market are all these old buildings that you could see were once so beautiful, and they're just run down. And I'm like, oh, it would be so amazing. And I don't exactly know why. I think it's probably funding, right? Isn't everything funding?
Yeah, it's kind of imaginary too, the concept of money, because you have a lot of people here who are unemployed or underemployed that you could put to work and kind of get money circulating. And it really blows my mind in South America how much like artisanal talent there is here and how low the low cost of labor, but yet certain things are left to fall into disrepair. And I just think it's just kind of how the economies are structured and leadership. Really, that's the main difference. But that's something that I'm going to touch on when I'm kind of showing. I drove past this one abandoned building in Ipanema, and I was like, and it's for sale. So I'm going to check it out. And I was like, what? How's this freestanding townhouse kind of sandwiched between two condominiums in complete disrepair? I was like, man, this is like gold to me. It's like, this is the sort of project that I love to take on. And I don't understand how the people who are here, maybe because they're here and their entire viewpoint is from this perspective. But me as an outsider, I come here and I see opportunity.
A lot of times, a foreigner's perspective, you can see a lot of opportunity. Like when we moved here, we saw a lot of opportunity in the entertainment industry because there's the beach, and there are bars, but not a whole lot of entertainment for kids.
Yeah.
And so we knew that it would be a success because they don't have it. And it was a success in the United States. And so it was a proven concept in the United States.
An easy model to.
And so, it was an easy model for us to replicate here in Brazil. And now everybody loves it. And everybody is asking us, hey, you should do it in this city or that city. So there's definitely huge opportunity. But also at the same time, there are huge barriers to entry into the market. And it's probably the same thing with the real estate. Like these buildings that you see, people here who live here, they see it every day. And so it becomes a normal thing for them to see day in, day out. But when a new, fresh perspective comes in, like yourself, you can see that and you can capitalize on that.
Yeah, it's funny because I tell this story sometimes. I grew up in Queens Village, New York, right, which is in Jamaica, Queens. Predominantly Black community. And I didn't realize that things weren't that good until I left and went away for college and came back after being away for a semester. I come back to the supermarket, it feels tiny. The quality of meat is different. The quality of products is different. And I was like, holy crap.
You didn't
I didn't.
know?
I didn't know, and it didn't seem that way living there day in day out until I kind of got out and got a different perspective. Was I able to see what was missing? Like in that neighborhood, we're probably the largest private employer in Queens Village now. I would say. I think the only larger employers are going to be schools, but there is no industry there. It's just kind of storefront bodega. You can only employ one or two people. There's nothing to kind of get the economic engine going. So I understand what you mean by a local may not see the opportunity that a foreigner does.
Yeah.
How do you feel about like the wealth gap here? It's something that kind of bothers me living in Colombia because I see the opportunity. I know that more can be done, but how do you feel the wealth gap? Well, what is just in general, what is your perspective on the wealth gap here?
The wealth gap that we see here in Rio is huge. For example, just a perspective. We read this statistic recently where in the United States, in order to be in the top 1% of earners in the United States, you have to make almost $500,000 per year. Here in Brazil, to be in the top 1%, you have to earn under $200,000 per year. So you can live a very elevated lifestyle at a very discounted price here in Brazil. And so that's the top 1%. And then below that, most everybody else is below that level and living in I would say a poverty level, yet everybody's getting by in the favelas or the comunidades. The minimum wage here in Rio is about 1,100 reais per month. So how can you imagine living on $250 a month anywhere in the world? It's not a good quality of life to have this low salary. So I see that the services here in Brazil are very inexpensive. You can hire a plumber or a carpenter for very inexpensive. Yet a lot of the products here in Brazil are very expensive, like the electronics. And it's because the import tariffs on a lot of these electronics are 100%. And so a cell phone is twice as expensive here as it is in the United States.
Isn't that crazy? That it blows my mind because I understand that conceptually it is to protect locally produced goods. I think it's really just to line the pockets of the government. But how do you expect someone who's earning $250 a month to ever save their way to getting a cell phone and a cell phone plan that now opens them up to all of the information in the world? It seems like absolutely counter to what is productive to build a nation. But yeah, the electronics prices are double. Maybe the cost of materials to build a home might be elevated beyond what it should be, but the labor is almost free.
Yeah, labor's cheap. Anything brand name is going to be expensive here. And that's one of those entries to barrier that makes our business successful and unique here is because we had to ship in our trampoline park. And when we were originally, weighing the cost, we knew it was going to be expensive, but we didn't know how much and how complicated it even is to work with the ports to get our equipment out. And so we calculated that in as a part of the cost of doing business. And like I said, it ended up being more, but still worth it. But the whole process and the cost is very complicated. It's quite a headache. And so when we've even thought about growing and opening more big jumps, because the opportunity is here, but it's so complicated that we've really had to weigh how much or how fast we can grow. And then during the pandemic, like any growth idea stopped. And so now we're kind of back to square one. But it really does create some big challenges. And then as far as the consumer goes, then you're paying. I feel like if it's made in Brazil, it's very inexpensive and it's not good quality. And then if you're buying a name brand or any sort of good electronics, it's going to be 3 times the cost. It's going to be so expensive that it's not affordable to most people. And so that's frustrating to me.
I think it's called mercantilism. What the government of Brazil has done, they've increased these import tariffs to kind of incentivize the merchants to build their own, to create their own industry here within the borders of Brazil. But what I've seen is that they've cut themselves off in a big way from the outside world, and made it difficult for competition to enter into this country, which, in my opinion, competition is good because it drives the price down. It incentivizes people to create a superior product to the competitor. So I think these import tariffs, maybe it was a good idea for some people, but for the whole of the country, maybe not such a good idea, in my opinion.
That's my opinion of things too. I always look at it and say, man, I see all of the underemployed people, the low cost, the natural resources, and say, you've got everything you need.
Yeah.
This country should be one of the richest and powerful countries in the world.
It is, though. From a statistical standpoint, it's a pretty large economy, but it's a powerhouse for South America. It can be a huge producer for the United States, a huge producer for the rest of the South American countries. I love Brazil, and I see so much potential here. The people are awesome. From the first time that I came here, I immediately thought, why don't Americans come down here more? This place is freaking awesome. The flight might be a little long, but you get it's one of the few places that I've been in the world where I could say this is a unique place.
Absolutely.
Completely unlike anywhere else that I could, you could say maybe the landscape might look a little Thai in some places where the beaches hit the mountains and that sort of thing. But it's something completely different.
Massive, and could be such a world leader. Yep. But I think it's the government, it's the corruption that holds it back. And it's sad to me. It really is a sad thing. Brazil has so much potential.
So in talking about cost of living, you identified as middle class in the United States. Household of 7, right? That's more than the average American, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What were your costs of living in the United States?
I would say it was about between $5,000 and $6,000 a month, I think. And
in Reno, Nevada.
In Reno, Nevada. And it was somewhat of it wasn't very comfortable because we're still working very hard. And then you bring that same $5,000 to $6,000 here to Brazil, and we live an elevated lifestyle where we can live in a very nice home. We can have a maid. We can have a gardener come in. We can hire a handyman to come in and fix anything that goes wrong in the house. We have a pool guy.
We eat well. We travel. Yeah. So that, again, is one of those things that frees up our time to do what we want, to improve our business, to be creative with other pursuits. Family time is the most important thing. So, I have the time to organize trips and educational opportunities and network and meet people and really spend the time enjoying life and not stressing and just working like we did in the States.
And are you getting any help with the kids now?
Yeah. They're older now. Now my youngest is 8 and the oldest is 14. And we homeschool them because schools here are so expensive. Also, we love our freedom. Mainly because we love the fact that we can take off and do anything, anytime as business owners. And so we homeschool our kids so that we can give them a really unique education. But I will have to say that a true unexpected cost for us when we moved to Brazil was the fact that you need to pay. Let me say it again. The true unexpected cost for us was the fact that you need to pay for school when you get here, because the public schools, they aren't good. They aren't safe. They don't even offer unions or, support systems for the teachers. So they don't show up for work. The kids, these government funded education programs like the public schools have are just very, very lacking. So you have to pay for private school. And there's a lot of levels of that. There's private Brazilian schools and religious schools and international schools and English schools.
What would you say is the cost range for school cost?
For a good school here in Rio de Janeiro, a good private school that's bilingual, it costs about $1,000 per kid at a minimum.
Per month.
$1,000 per month per kid.
At a minimum.
So every year per child, about $12,000 per child. And for us, that was unattainable, even if we made a lot of money, because we have 5 kids. And that's over $60,000 a year just for education for our kids, for elementary education. So we did the cost benefit analysis, and we realized, okay, we can hire a private teacher to come to our home and enroll our kids in a private American academy online, and it would be so much less expensive. A small fraction of the cost.
How much is it costing you now, if you're comfortable with that? How much is it costing you now on a monthly basis to maintain your household, all in cost?
All in cost, everything, it's between, we make a lot more money now than we did in the United States. I think it's about $7,000 a month, and we live a very comfortable, nice lifestyle in a very large home with a swimming pool. We have a club that's here in the neighborhood that our kids can go to and swim and play sports. We have everything we need here.
By comparison, how much do you think the same lifestyle would cost you in the U.S.?
Oh my gosh.
It would be 2 to 3 times more expensive, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because a house like this with the swimming pool in this neighborhood, with the security that we have, I think it would be at least double.
I think it'd be more.
Oh, wait.
Because now you're talking about a private home teacher, a gardener. I'm in it. I understand. Like I always look at that. I immediately come into an area and I'm like, this lifestyle would cost me $40,000 a month in the United States or something along those lines. And it's like, and at the same time, I'd be working 80, 90 hours a week, not seeing my kids. Yeah. So when you look at it, living in South America is usually about 50 to 75% cheaper than equivalent lifestyle in the United States. That's kind of like the metrics that I use.
If I can add one more thing about the schools, we've been homeschooling our children for the last 2 years, and we were deciding if we wanted to put them in international school this year. They want to get out of the house more and be more social. So we started looking into international schools, and what we found is that there's a lot of costs that aren't included besides the monthly educational cost. For instance, at the American school, it's $7,000 registration fee times 5, plus the $1,000 a month, plus books are expensive, plus transportation, which is not provided, that's a private expense, and then uniforms, and also meals. Nothing is included. So it's more than, it's probably about $2,000 a month per kid every month, and it's a 12-month contract. So it does end up being, when you really dive into the true cost of school, it's much more expensive than you think. And for us, it wasn't worth it, because I was like, we could travel, we could go pick a country, and for the price I'm paying for school, we can experience another country and really learn and taste and be a part of it. Yeah. And
your cultural experience. Yeah. Social studies, the whole shebang, for a fraction of the price. Yeah.
And then for me, then at school, we're tied down. You can't, miss a lot of school. We're here when we're on our own track. We can fit school around what we're doing. And so we found that it's much better for us.
We didn't want school to get in the way of our kids' education or our world education for our children. Because now we're untethered from an institution, an educational institution, and we can go and do and see and learn whatever we want to
do. Last question. Who is this for? If you're talking to, talking to the American public, which is, I think, who's going to be watching this, speaking to the American public, who is this sort of move for? not in a commercially way, but I guess I could say it from my point of view, right? And things that I've seen, and even in this conversation. So you have this work-life balance that, is out of whack in the United States. You have some cultural issues that kind of limit how much we take in the world. Like, well, many of us don't speak another language, race divides, political divides, all kinds of like tension points. And I find that content creators and people who actually picked up and moved to another country kind of have like the same sort of view of the world. It's like, I'm here to see it all, enjoy it all, kind of strip down these isms that might have been, placed on me or conditioned for. And I find that those are the people who feel that way are the same as exact people who pick up and leave and actually get something out of that change. So in your own words, who is this sort of change for?
This change is for families, for parents out there who want more time, who just want something different for their kids, whether it's to teach them about culture or allow that opportunity to be bilingual, but to get up and really do something different, be an agent of change where you can change your lifestyle and provide, how do I want to put it? This change for us has improved our marriage and provided a very unique opportunity for our children. And that's where all the value in it lies for me, is that we needed a change. And this was more than enough. We needed a change, and this was so rewarding and fulfilling for us to be able to work on something together, to come closer and to build something massive, rather than not just building our family, but building a business. And we really had to work on ourselves and work with each other. And that really allowed for a lot of opportunity for growth and change. And it wasn't always easy, but it made all the difference for us. And then as a consequence of that, being business owners, it's allowed us to change our lifestyle, to create the schedule we want, to create the lifestyle that we want, which is family-based. And so we have that time for each other where we can connect with each other and we can have the time and the energy to give to each other and also to our kids. And for our kids, it's giving them the world. It's giving them every opportunity to see and learn and love different people and different cultures, but to truly have a second language that they can use professionally. Like, I'm very adamant about their Portuguese learning and commitment to the language and the added study that we do at home, but that also we don't just have foreign friends. We have a lot of Brazilian friends. It's important for me that they not just sort of play around when you visit a new place, but that they understand and they know and they're learning a new culture. I really want it to be a part of them because I think it's a unique opportunity to have two cultures and to sort of be able to pick and choose what works best and what you love the most, because I think that's that freedom of expression. And you don't have to be just African American. You don't have to be just American or just Brazilian. You can be who you want to be. And I hope that we can provide that life where they have enough experiences where they can take the best things from other cultures and apply it to their lives or use it and allow that to teach and grow and help other people. So in the end, it's for the kids. But it was also for us, and for the family life that we have now is incredible. I couldn't have dreamt this up. It's beautiful. And I feel really blessed and really lucky, but also we did the work. We stayed here and we stuck it out during some really hard times, and it was worth it.
I want to add to that. I believe that the American dream has completely changed. It used to be go to college, get a job, buy a house, get married, have a family. I think that's changed completely, and I think the new American dream is untethered. and to be able to go wherever you want, whenever you want. We live in a digital life, a digital time where you can do your work from anywhere in the world. As long as you have an internet connection, you can do your work anywhere you want to go. And so with that flexibility, I think that the American dream is changing, and it's making it so that we can experience all of the beautiful things that everybody in the world has to offer. It's a beautiful thing.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I completely,